What's up, everybody? The Run Back is back. After 2 years in a hiatus, I haven't done one since the beginning of the pandemic. So after missing 2 years of streaming and content creation, I'm trying to get back into the groove. And this was originally intended to be a live show, but there's just too many buttons to push, too many things to manage at one time. So what I decided to do is to make the Run Back live to tape, in which I can talk as casually as I can, but still bring the news and manage media, but not live to tape. And I'll bring that to you maybe every Saturday. However, live, the thing I would like to do live is the Q&A. That's the thing that doesn't require me to do so much button juggling. It doesn't require me to push too much media. It encourages a direct interaction with you guys, because we all love games and we all love to talk and we all love VR. So why not use that format for that? It's best suited for it. So that's the Run Back. That's the idea, the plan with the live show. But in today's Run Back, we're going to talk about, well, news of the week, specifically, mostly regarding Meta. Interesting things that I saw from other content creators. There was some fantastic interviews that came out this week. And there was one specific content creator that had just a super engaging, compelling interview that I thought was worth further discussion. But right off the top, Jay Dunn and Joy Rain at Get 'Em to the Metaverse did an interview with Alana Foreman. She is a producer at Vinci Games, and they're putting out Blacktop Hoops on the MetaQuest, and I think it might be coming for PSVR too. I can't remember, but I know it's coming out for the MetaQuest. There's a beta out right now. I would encourage everyone to get it. And if I'm being honest, of the major basketball games out right now on the Quest 2, I personally feel like Blacktop Hoops is the one that is the best. It's the one that I would probably get before the other ones. That's not shading the other basketball games. They're all playing to a similar NBA Jam, NBA Street type vibe, more arcadey action. But the polish behind Blacktop Hoops is exceptional. It's a fantastic game. I think they hired some kind of Disney animator, or he's part of the team who does all the character design work and does all the animations. It's a beautiful, beautiful game and really works hard to capture the experience, but mostly the attitude of street basketball, court basketball. So I would tell everyone to get it. But the reason why I would tell you all to check out this interview that they did on Get 'Em to the Metaverse isn't just because A, Jay Dunn and Joy Rain are dope. I love going to their channel. I love checking out their weekly interviews. B, not because they do dope interviews, because they are at the top of their game, and they don't just do interviews that covers the game. They don't just do interviews that cover VR. Their interviews often have a social bend where they try to give voice to creatives that don't normally get a chance to have a voice. So Blacktop Hoops, Vinci Games, fantastic team. They really get into some of the challenges with making an arcade, or at least balancing an arcade VR basketball game with simulation. They also get into some of the reasons why they're motivated to make a really great, authentic basketball game. And one of the big reasons that struck out to me was that it tries to make games for people who can't get out to those courts. I have a nephew right now who loves to play basketball, but currently he lives in an area where there are no courts, where he can't get to a court easily. And what this tries to do is create a space in VR where you get the authentic, real feel of playing basketball, attitude and all, but in a safe environment. And that's one of Alana's jobs, is to keep the environment safe, keep everything pleasant, keep the game fun, heavily moderated, but not so moderated that's restrictive. So again, check out the interview. I'm not doing it justice. Please go check out Get 'Em to the Metaverse. Go check out their interview. Rough Talk VR, I have to shout those guys out. They're a father and son duo who are super passionate about video games. And if I haven't pointed out, I forgot to point this out earlier about Get 'Em to the Metaverse. Joy Rain and Jay Dunn, they're a husband and wife team, which is unique in VR. And Rough Talk VR is a father and son team, and they passionately cover VR games every week, doing game reviews, interviews with creators in the industry. And this week, they stepped just outside of the line a bit with VR and went into AR, which is, all part of the same family. But they talked to Jerry Ellsworth. Jerry Ellsworth is the CEO, founder of Tilt 5. So if you don't know what Tilt 5 is basically magic mixed reality technology, right? You get a mat, a customized mat, and this technological interface that I don't have a PC, so I don't have one. I've only seen hundreds of videos and heard glowing reviews about. But essentially, you hook this thing up to your PC, and similar to Demeo, you're playing with what looks like holograms in the real world. It's really impressive. But they do an interview with Jerry, and what's compelling about the interview isn't that Jerry goes in depth with the technology. To be honest, she doesn't really talk much about Tilt 5 until the latter part of the interview. What's really impressive is that she goes into the story of her life. Now, there aren't a lot of Jerrys in the engineering VR space. She didn't just help program this thing. She is the engineer behind this product. Normally, when we hear about these software and hardware system architects, these engineers, we hear big names, but we don't often hear people like Jerry, whose story is captivating and starts well before she'd ever gotten into the gaming scene. I mean, this woman started off as a race car driver. She started off building cars, and eventually, you know, I don't want to ruin the story. Please check out Rough Talk VR. They do great work, and they just let her talk, and it is compelling from beginning to end. So listen to that interview, and then while you're at it, go check out Tilt 5. When I show you videos, I'm telling you, it looks like technological magic. I wish I had a PC so I can enjoy it, but I have to enjoy it through, what's the word, osmosis, or at a distance, so other people, you know, I enjoy it through other people. So yeah, Tilt 5, check it out. The Let's Talk Oculus guys interviewed Brandon and Jordan of Click Games and Nooner Bear Studio for the new release of Rogue Ascent. Now, if you're not familiar with Rogue Ascent, it was a game that was on App Lab for like a year. What's special about this game and why it was a no-brainer that this game would go from the App Lab and transition over to the official MetaQuest store is that it's something that really pushes VR technology in new ways. The unique twist on this game is that it's all hand-based. You don't need the controllers. The game totally operates as a first-person shooter with hands, and the hand tracking on this game is second to none. There is nothing in its class on VR right now. It's taking full advantage of the Oculus tech, and Meta reached out to them. Meta was all over this tech when they saw it. The way you move around in this game is by something that they call node-based movement system, where you point your hand or you point the gun with your hands in a certain direction, and it just fires off. It's an auto shooter, so it shoots on its own as long as your hand is in the right position, and it moves depending on where you position your hand on the screen. And the game's special, but that's probably not the best part of the interview. What they really get into is some of the challenges, not only with developing this technology, they give a really great story of how independent developers can fast track their way onto the MetaQuest store by communicating in a way that Meta would be enticed by. In this case, making technology that makes the MetaQuest 2 look even better. The other part of this interview was the conversation around integrating social networks into VR games. Apparently not a lot of VR developers do it. And until they pointed it out in this interview, I guess I didn't realize that you can't easily integrate with apps like Twitch or Facebook or YouTube from within games. And that's a major inhibitor of content creators, or allowing content creators to really show off what a game can do. Now, the big conversation that I wanted to have was based around the Between Realities interview with Blair Runeau. He's the developer behind the upcoming PC VR game, Lo-Fi. Now, if you don't know Blair Runeau, he's pretty prominent on Twitter. He's known and has been in the VR space for 10 years, and he's one of the OGs. In fact, they refer to him as an OG several times throughout this podcast. It's a great interview. He is definitely not one to bite his tongue. He speaks his mind. And one of the things that might ruffle some feathers is his discussion or his comment about YouTube creators, specifically small creators feeling entitled to ask for free game codes in order to do whatever coverage they feel is necessary to promote that game, and in many times to promote themselves. It was a good discussion. As a small creator, I wanted to be fully transparent and talk about that, because I've been in the gaming space for, before VR, I was in the gaming space since 2000, so 2023 now. I've been in the gaming space for 23 years. I may not look as old as I am, but I'm an older guy. So I've been in the gaming space as an editor, as a producer, not as a game producer, but on the journalism side. and as an enthusiast mostly for a very long time. And one of the challenges that I've always had personally, and as I've entered various jobs, is the relationship between content creators and game developers, right? Now, back in the days, it was actually even more hairy because, you know, a lot of the magazines and those sort of outlets that are now come and gone, but you know, the practice still goes on with some of the larger outlets. But the direct relationship between coverage of a game and the access to that game is a little suspect. It's a little questionable. And that's always been something that's been rough for me to reconcile, right? As a person who usually buys their own games, and you know, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but games are and have always been expensive. So I've always approached gaming from the perspective of, this is a luxury. This is something that if you are going to spend your hard-earned money on, you should hear about this game, this thing, from people who are as enthusiastic as you are, or who have similar interests to you about the thing that you're interested in buying. This will help you make a smart decision. And I've had this opinion from way back when I worked in game stores, way back when I worked in gaming magazines, and I worked in game stores through college. I've been around the gaming scene for a very long time. I was the town crier for video games back in my high school. I had an old show focused on pop culture. I've been around before IGN. I've been around for a long time. So I've always had that conflict about the balance between what these professional publications or outlets do with regards to how they cover games and what they talk about versus the very naked and transparent identity of a creator, these publishers, these YouTube creators, as marketing machines or mouthpieces for a particular publisher or developer. And it's a tough relationship, right? Fortunately, I don't have that problem because I'm too small fry and probably too opinionated to be of value to a lot of the publishers. And thankfully, with the advent of YouTube, I'm starting to see other creatives that I respect that probably would not have been around back in the day in the magazine days or in the early internet days. Again, I'm not saying that those content creators back in the day, those outlets that you know, your favorite outlets from back in the day were on the take. I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is that the current batch, many of the current batch of VR enthusiasts, again, I like calling out Gamertag and I like calling out Mattel 311 specifically, and I'm not going to go into a list of creators, but those two specifically, they speak their mind and they don't feel like they are on anybody's payroll, but their enthusiasm for the game shown through in pretty much everything they do. It doesn't feel like, a lot of times you'll hear creators say they'll get codes or want codes for a game, but they wouldn't necessarily want to buy it. So they'll ask for the codes. You know, I get it. Why not ask? I ask all the time. But I put it up front. Hey, how can I be of value to you? What are your channel requirements, publishers or developers? And if I meet them, would you kindly send me a code? I would love to, you know, play with it and tell you what I think about the game, or tell the audience what I think about the game, even if my audience is only 5 or 10 people. Whatever that audience is, I don't think it matters. My audience isn't going to do any real needle movement one way or the other. But like I said, with certain content creators like Mattel and Gamertag who have really large audiences, they feel genuine. They don't feel like they're doing it for the dollar. They don't feel like they're doing it just because they got it for free. They feel like a lot of the games they cover, whether they heard back from a publisher or not, they probably would have, you know, bought the game anyway. And that's what I connect with. I connect with the fact that they feel like it's a great surprise when somebody sends a game to them. And oftentimes it feels like they just pass the codes on along to us anyway, as the other enthusiasts. So it doesn't feel like they're benefiting at all. They just pass it on to the community. But those guys really feel like they're putting their heart and soul into the content that they make. And again, that's not speaking ill of other developers. I'm just saying the ones I've personally connected with immediately are those two. So that's something that I can't say you'd find too frequently in the old paradigm of content creation in the older outlets. There would always be some level of compromise, some level of some awareness of the needs of the publisher and the developer, and that awareness would creep into the content that they make in some way, conscious or unconscious. So here we are. That was a long-winded way of saying Blair Renault discussed with Between Realities guys his opinions, and what he's saying are the not so publicized opinions of developers when they talk amongst each other about the expectation of content creators for asking for codes, asking for money to cover their games, the expectation that they should get coverage, they should get codes so they can speak to their audience. And I thought it was an interesting conversation. I'll play a clip here.
Well, I don't want to like lose too much in the semantics of like the definition of the word influencer, right? Or the use of the word influencer, because you know, I would never call myself an influencer. Like, it doesn't say VR influencer in my bio on Twitter or whatever, you know what I mean? But I'm not a developer. I'm not actively contributing to the creation of these experiences, yet I felt compelled to be making contributions in whatever way that comes naturally for me, because I just love the VR space so much. You know, I love the technology, I love the community, and like, I wanted to be a part of it. So that's why we're like, all right, well, we're going to make videos, you know, we're going to do a podcast, we're going to like make these things, and we're going to get involved, because frankly, there's like, it's almost like it's not a choice. It's like a drive to be involved in it. You know what I mean? So like, when does it become a problem, I guess, is what I want to know, you know? Like,
yeah,
what we're doing.
You are doing it exactly right. And I would say the same thing goes for developers. You know, there's developers that get into VR because they think, like, I don't know, it's like prestigious, or they think they can, like, you know, just port something to VR and be like, but then there's, and I would tell them not to do it. I'd be like, don't get into VR if you're not actually passionate about it. And the same thing goes for influencers, like or content creators. You know, there's people that even after 10 years of like, not like, they might be passionate about VR, and that's amazing and great, make the content, but then to at the same time sort of like feel entitled to the what comes with being an actual, like, influencer marketer or something, you know, like, give me a key to your game, give me, like, you know, I'm promoting you, like, the way that they communicate with developers just gets our backs up, because it's like, dude, you have 40 views a video and you're making demands on me and making it sound like I owe you something. It's very like disheartening. It kind of like, it makes you mad.
So that's what Blair said with the Between Realities guys. And you've heard what I felt about the initial conflict that the creators and creatives have. But my take has always been, it's a privilege. It is a privilege to get this stuff. These are luxury items. These aren't life necessities. There are people who come from poverty who don't have access to any of this stuff. Y'all, it's just games. It's just games, right? We can ask, and if some PR team feels like, hey, you know what? We want to do you guys a favor and give you guys a game, let you get the joy of playing it. And if you want to tell some people about it, dope, awesome. But, you know, I don't ever expect free game coverage, right? I don't ever expect anybody to give me a code. Even if I was bigger, 20, 100 times bigger, I don't ever go in expecting that. It's a gift, right? And because I don't expect it, when I do get it, it's fantastic. That's great. It's a blessing, right? But I also don't expect with that code that I have to cater to the company line and say what they want me to say about the game. And good PR people these days don't want that from you anyway. They just want you to be truthful and authentic and speak to your audience. And usually that feedback goes back to the developers and helps them in making the game better through DLC or some kind of patch update to improve the gaming experience when they can, budget and time restrictions allowing. That's a healthy cycle. And that's what I've seen, especially in the small but growing VR space these days. It's something that you don't get a chance to see in the larger AAA flat game development community. You see it some in indie games. You see it a lot in indie games and mobile games, but it's especially apparent in the VR scene where the developers are so accessible through Discord or through Twitter or through any number of social media outlets. And not only are they accessible, they're conversant. They love talking to us, the enthusiasts, because they are enthusiasts themselves. They love playing this stuff. It's a wild west. It's a burgeoning field of creativity flying all over the place. People making this content, people making these games, and that communication back and forth is exciting for everybody involved. That is an ideal, healthy ecosystem. But the minute you start getting prima donnas on either end of this ecosystem is the minute where things become corrupted and messy and content is compromised, creation is compromised, and there's a no-win for anyone. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying, creators, if you're out there, chill out, ask, because this is an expensive hobby. My library is testament to it. If you see my library of games, woo, yeah, my wife is not happy about how much money I've spent on VR. But also, I wanted to bring this discussion up to send it to you, the people out there who aren't content creators, but who are as enthusiastic about VR as we are, right? The ones who get in front of the camera. You guys are spending your hard-earned money on these games. What value do you see in content creators? Are we helpful in your purchasing choices? Are you entertained by as content creators? Is this something that you feel is necessary in helping you purchase a game? Do you think it's right that we should get free codes, or should we have to pay for it along with everyone else? I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts. Was Blair right in what he said about the piece? And not even so much the obvious that people shouldn't be jerks with the expectation of getting these codes, but should the relationship between content creators and developers be scrutinized more closely, not just from the developer side, but from you, the buyers, me, the buyer, right? Is that important? I would love to know what you guys think in the comments, but I think it's worth a discussion. I got some great comments from you guys this week in some of my videos from last week, and one of them came from a good friend, Ryan Stevens, where he asked, I know it's a peanut butter and chocolate thing, but what's more important in VR for you, head tracking or 3D? Head tracking in 3D, I feel, are almost non-issues now, because within a headset, you automatically get head tracking. Your head is the camera and everything's in 3D. So that was a tough question to answer, because now that we've moved into the world of 6DOF, where you have depth in the gaming experiences and you can move around within a gaming space, and every object is 3D, i.e. it has dimension, there's no preference. They're expected. They're part of the experience now. But what I did say to Ryan, which I think might be more interesting, is the conversation between eye tracking and hand tracking. That seems to be the next plateau for VR, and definitely seems to be an area that Quest is going towards, that Meta is going towards with their new headsets. And we can expect to see improved hand and eye tracking in both the Quest Pro, whenever that new version comes out, but especially in the Quest 3. It's an interesting discussion, right? Are these things important in VR? I mean, obviously, yes, they are important, but to what end do they benefit the player, the gamer, the productivity power user in VR? Are they important right now? And should they push the cost of these devices that we're about to invest in? Well, I don't know. We talked a little bit earlier about Rogue Ascent, and while its hand tracking is fantastic and best in class in VR right now, as a dark-skinned black person, I don't do well with hand tracking. For whatever reason, The light is absorbed in my skin, it's not picked up by the sensors, and things work poorly for me on every hand tracking device I've ever played, every hand tracking game I played on the Quest. Now, some work better than others, and Rogue Ascent is easily the best of them, but no, I don't enjoy hand tracking most of the time, and I turn it off. I look forward to Rogue Ascent on the Quest 3, hopefully with improved HD cameras and better technology, AI, to better calculate my hand and light reflections. But for now, it's kind of cumbersome for me, right? For other people, I've heard it's incredible. And Rogue Ascent would probably be the first game, right after Demeo actually, that I really explore the benefits of hand tracking in VR. Eye tracking, on the other hand, is a whole other conversation, right? Tracking something with your eye in gaming, as shown by the PSVR 2, can potentially improve the graphical capabilities of the experience that you're having in VR. For example, the way it was explained to me, again, I don't have a PSVR 2, I don't have a PS5, but from what I understand about how the games work, where your eyes focused on where your eyes focus in the game, the graphics can render around that, taking away resources from other parts that you don't need to see. So those parts where your eyes focus offer the best possible resolution, or the best possible way the game can look. That's exciting, right? Because now you can do higher function capabilities, theoretically, on lower end machines. Because again, you're allocating your graphical resources. And again, this is a layman's, non-engineering, non-software developer explanation of my understanding of it. But basically, you're putting resources to where they're most important, right? And taking the most out of the machine. You're squeezing every possible bit of juice in the areas that they need to be spent. And that's one of the benefits of eye tracking. Also, as I understand, good eye tracking can help alleviate some of the problems with motion sickness. With your eyes not being confused, with your eyes tracking where they want to go, in whatever science it does in the brain, it allows the brain to stabilize, it allows the brain to better understand what it sees, and ultimately you get a better VR experience. Again, I'm no scientist or engineer, but these benefits are interesting for the progressive adoption of VR in the future, especially from people who right now get sick in VR, who don't understand, or who have problems working with the interfaces that we have in these experiences. Controllers are a secondary obstacle between yourself and the game. They work, they're amazing for people who have been playing games for years. But when you can remove that, right, and you just use your natural hands to do things in a one-to-one relationship with the game, and David Heaney from Upload VR talked about this on Twitter a while ago, but when you can remove any kind of obstacles or interface or obstructions or abstractions between yourself and the experience that the developer is trying to implement, that brings everything one step closer to making a fantastic VR, AR, and mixed reality experience in the future. So that's my take. What do you guys think? Is hand tracking important? Is eye tracking even important in VR? Should we be spending so much time with this, or should we just be making better games in VR? Let us know what you think. Should the horsepower be used for better graphics or those implementations going forward? I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments. One other thing that was mentioned in the comments, and I have to give this shout out to Rating Realms. He left a comment that made me think a lot about this first impressions format that I've been doing lately. I played Propagation Hotel for 1 hour. I don't do reviews. I refuse to do reviews. I don't do scores. I won't do any of that stuff because I feel like that's up to you guys to make your individual decision on what you value based on what you've seen or something that you might have grasped onto into what I said. Now, I was and remain extremely excited for the game because no matter how the game ends up, I think the atmosphere is incredible. I think the mechanics are fantastic. I stand behind what I said there, but he made a really good point. He felt that the game changed dramatically after that first hour. It dropped in quality. In fact, what he said was, get back over there. It feels half cooked. The first half is simply amazing, but after the chase scene feels super rushed. No more exploration. Like if they had to rush through to finish it and the game just ends abruptly. Feels like a demo, and I wish they would add more. They would add more in a future of it. there's value, I think, in what he's saying, right? Now, I don't feel like my site is the, let me try that again. There's value in what he's saying. Now, I'm not even going there. I'm not touching the fact that if you're going to do a review, you should finish a game. I totally agree with that. And there are other channels that are better suited to getting full reviews of a game. What I do is offer the first hour experience to help you guys get impressions, because that's me, right? I'm a taster. I taste games, I go to the store, I get them, I try the Aflac games, I taste them, and if I like them, I keep going, right? But because there's such a huge quantity of these games coming out, I feel like it's best served to the people that watch this stuff here to give you guys a taste of my first impressions. You rock along with me, right? If you like it, you like it. And if you don't, then you know what you have to do. One of the games that I'm struggling with right now is Survival Nation. Look, before we even continue, it's not a great game. Like, seriously, it's not even, I would argue it's not even a good game, right? But I keep playing it because it appeals to a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of the things that I like in video games, a lot of my quirks, a lot of the addictions that I have in video game, specifically with stat building and seeing change, cosmetic and adaptation within a game. I'm seeing a lot of that in Survival Nation. The gun shooting is terrible, right? The gun shooting is not good. I paid $29.99 for this game, right? Full price, no discount. Would I tell someone else to get that game for $29.99? That's up to you, right? I couldn't take it back if I wanted to because I blew past the 2 hours. Not because I'm having fun, it's because I'm obsessive and I just can't stop playing this type of thing. A closer comparison would actually be something like Zenith, right? Zenith is the same price, $29.99. Well, Zenith is definitely growing with updates, getting better and better, improving the system. It's becoming a full-fledged, robust MMO experience, right? I have far less faith in Survival Nation getting better or improving or upgrading significantly. What you play in the first 10 minutes or the first hour feels like what you're going to play in the 17th hour. You just might get slightly better enemies. And again, the same criticism could be leveled at Zenith, right? But you get so many visual enhancements in the game. And I don't just mean improved graphics, but there's a constant reward for exploration and stimuli. The climbing, discovery, the hunting, the fighting, the raids, all that. Zenith feels like it's totally worth the $30 that they charge you for it, because it's always going to grow, become better. I can't say the same thing about Survival Nation, but I can't also tell you not to get the game. It's an addictive loop. You can't do half as much. There's climbing, right? Which you kind of expect climbing on almost every surface in these games these days after Population 1 and Zenith. But no, there's climbing, but only on very specific surfaces. When you see a ladder, you can climb, and only in those areas. There's no exploration, really. You get to an area where you see a rock face where you should be able to maybe jump off or peek around the corner. No, none of that. There's tons of invisible walls everywhere, so there's none of that. And you're fighting the same enemies over and over again because the quests keep sending you in little circles over and over again in small areas. Fetch mushrooms here, fetch blue thing here, go fish here, go do this. It's rough. It's rough. But you keep playing because if you're like me, you're compulsive about building up those stats, even though the gunplay is not good, even though the melee is not good. You can't help it. So if that is the type of game that appeals to you, I would say maybe check it out, right? But the reason I brought up Survival Nation at all was in Raiding Realms' point. The game changes after the first experience, the first blush with the game. Something like The Last Worker, I feel like was a pretty good estimation of what that game is, but then upon reading other reviews and other people talking about prolonged periods of the game gets even better. It opens up even more. And in fact, the delivery aspect of the game that I experienced is only a third of the game, right? So the game blossoms into something incredible, even more incredible than what it starts. So maybe my first impressions doesn't hold as much value as it would for someone who's played more of the game, which goes to my point. My purpose of doing a first impressions is to give you a taste of the experience. I'm not saying it's the whole experience. I'm not applying a score. I'm only telling you my immediate reaction upon experiencing or interfacing with the game the developers would ask the audience to try, ask the audience to invest in, right? So that's where I try to come at it. And I try to leave it as open as possible. Unless I'm totally disgusted by a game, totally disgusted by it, and it happens. You won't get a review proper out of me. And that's because, frankly, I try to only approach games, because I'm spending my money too. I try to approach games that I want to play. Now, something like The Last Worker, I didn't buy. I was given that code for free, and I was on the brink of buying it anyway, so it was a pleasant surprise that they gave me the code. Shout out to Between Reality Skiva, Impact Reality, actually, with Skiva. Shout out to those guys. VR with Jasmine, Skiva, and Eric. Thank you for sending me that code. But more importantly, I would have bought the game anyway, and even after covering it, I would still buy the game. So that's my take on it. I'm not trying to get it right. I'm not trying to tell people to buy or not buy something. I can only tell you my experience and the time I've had with something. And I hope that's of some value to you, and hope that gives valuable feedback to developers to give them an indication of what people's immediate reaction to interface. Are they communicating what they want to communicate with new users engaging in that game? So that's what that is. But yeah, Raiding Realms, you are absolutely right to feel that the second half of the game doesn't live to the promise of the first half. But what do you guys think? Do you feel like these first impression reviews or first impressions are valuable? Would you rather see reviews, or are these a waste of time to you? Let me know in the comments. This is important data for me, because if that's the case, I won't do first impressions anymore. I'll just play live streams and you guys tell me what you think. I think there's a difference between live streams and my 5 to 8 minute first impressions, right? One is a succinct summary of an experience, and one is just happening in real time, quirks and all. So yeah, I would love to know what you guys think in the comments, and I can better allocate my time to make what you guys want to see. I'm happy to play all of it, so just let me know. Denny Unger over at Cloudhead Games always has fantastic posts on Twitter. I'm a big fan of Denny, and if I can, I'm going to try to get him on an interview in this show. But he said, I am less excited about seeing my real world junk space cluttered with AR objects than I am reskinning my space to be a medieval pub or a base on the moon or a quiet beach, etc. I've always felt that MR and AR related tech, depth sensors, etc., will be a bigger benefit to VR than MR. Also, I think this will be a heck of a lot more popular than people realize. It's not put screen or app in my dirty living room. It's replace living room with tropical beach and then use this or that app. I think Danny makes some good points, right? AR and MR, mixed reality, augmented reality, these are hot topics when you talk to people in the VR community. I've had fascinating conversations with people who actually love VR, who A, don't really understand the differentiations between the terminology, and B, don't understand the point about how these are two separate, but also codependent technologies that are both equally important, with both spaces growing in the future. I'm personally a fan of both. I adore VR as an escapism simulation tool. It's fantastic and teaches me about things, and it allows me to escape into another place, which is something I've been chasing after in games since I started gaming. But I wasn't as sold on mixed reality until the first time I popped in World on the MetaQuest. Now again, I don't think that game is incredible. I actually prefer Wander. But the first time you see the World app and you see your room, and again, I'm on Quest, so I see everything in black and white, but you see your world, but this digital thing on top of your world, it feels more realistic. Even though you know the thing that you're looking at isn't there, your mind feels like it's there, and it's very exciting. Mixed reality, as in mixing digital world with the world that we see, is definitely going to be the way of the future. We're a long way from it. We don't have small enough glasses yet. the technology isn't good enough yet. But as Denny was pointing out, with LiDAR sensors, which allows cameras and the technology to calculate depth, this is going to get a lot more interesting. What I don't want to see, and what I hope we don't have, are conversations about AR replacing VR. I think they work in tandem, serve different needs, different audiences, and are both equally valuable. First, I love both of them, right? I don't love looking at mixed reality through my phone or tablet device, right? I don't think that's very exciting. I don't think anybody does, which is why I don't think many people use it. But the idea of using your device as a window to look at other digital things, to get digital information, to see cool things, to interact with something, but not really interact with it, that's exciting, right? And I think we're going to see a lot of that going forward when you take that camera and you put it over your eye, and now you have your hands or whatever interface you have in 6DOF using this interaction, getting that information sent directly to your brain. I think that's super exciting technology, and that's the hint of where Apple wants to go. I have other thoughts on Apple in the future. I really wish there was a middle ground between what Apple intends to do and what we are starting to get with things like Unreal, with these glasses that aren't really mixed reality but give you the idea of it. I wish there was a space, some gap there filled that Apple would focus on before we get to the big guns, but that's a side note. I'm excited for what mixed reality is going to be, and I totally agree with what Denny says about making the world we're in, that we exist in now, more interesting. Not just superimposing cool stuff on a world of crap, right? Changing or altering the environment that we're in. It's fascinating, and I hadn't really thought about that before, but I think that's worth a discussion. But VR, why do people feel like this is going to be a replacement for VR? VR transports you to a different place. It literally takes you out of one space and takes you into the imagination of another space. It allows you to do things that you cannot do in your real world. I would rather think of mixed reality and XR as augmenting your real world experience, providing information in addition to your real world experience, while VR allows you to do things that you physically cannot do in the real world. Jump higher, shoot things faster, run faster, go to places you can never go to. They don't supplant each other, they support each other. And in an ideal world, in the world that I wish that we have in the next few years, if things keep on course, the ideal tech allows you to maybe do both. If you had a pair of glasses that could do both, that would be great. I don't see that happening, but maybe we could look at one as a cell phone or laptop versus, no, one is an iPad or cell phone and one is your laptop, right? They do similar things, but they serve two totally different purposes, and they're both necessary in tandem with each other. I think that's what AR, VR, XR, which is the shorthand for all of this stuff, needs to be looked at going forward. And I think that's what's exciting about Meta. Meta, for all of its faults, and God, they have so many, but Meta, for all of its faults, seems to be looking at it as an all-encompassing picture. They aren't just looking at one, which is what Apple seems to be looking at. They're looking at the whole thing in totality. And that's what's most exciting to me about how they're moving forward in the space. Do I like Meta? Do I agree with all their decisions? Most of their decisions? No, I don't. But they have dumped is the wrong word, because no. They have invested so much in VR, right? That you have to take them seriously. You have to take their vision. And, Zuckerberg, for all of his faults, he's got a vision. Abrams, they have a vision over there, and we're going to get to it. And I think we're going to see a lot of that take shape, at least for us gamers, on June 1st. I said it in a previous video. I'm going to say it again. I think we're going to see more in the games that June 1st presentation, because there's got to be something to combat what Apple's doing. I hope so, but we'll see. Anyway, that is it for today. Let me know what you guys think about AR, XR. Do you care about it? Do you think MR is important? Do you just want to see more VR games? Is that what you want to see? And forget all this hand tracking, mixed reality crap, and just give me give me Half-Life Alyx on the Quest 3. Is that all you want? There's nothing wrong with that either. Just let me know in the comments. Once again, if you have any questions this week, I'm going to post something. I'm going to try to start using the social feed of YouTube a lot more, so you can contact me directly and we can try to get a conversation going and answer some Q&As or have some direct interaction on the live feeds. But anyway, this is a fun show. Thank you guys for rocking with me. I'll see you guys in the future. Show out.